Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we're going to be taking a look into Unity. So all I have in front of me here is a basic 2D Unity project. This is the basic screen you get when you first turn it up, and the first thing we're going to look at today is moving around the different elements. So each of these different elements here, which are labeled, so project, console, hierarchy, inspector, they're all movable. So I prefer to reorganize my layout, so to shrink the inspector and hierarchy slightly, move the project over to the side, and shrink down the console. Once I've done that, I like to change the project layout. So if you click on these three dots here, you can change it to a one-column layout, right, and that just shortens up the amount of space that takes. Once I've done this, I like to create folders to organize my project. So I'm going to be creating 3 different folders. So I'm going to right click on assets. I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to create a scripts folder. And then I will create a sprites folder. And lastly, I'm going to create a folder called prefabs. And we'll put these folders to use later on. So now that we've created those 3 folders, what we can do is we can actually create something in our game screen here. So we have our scene where we normally work, and we have our game screen, which was what's going to show when you press that play button up the top there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a prefab to act as my ground. So to do that, I'm going to right click over here under my hierarchy, and I'm going to create a 2D object, a sprite, and I'm going to start off with a square. All right, now we can see our square here in the center of our game. If we go to the game screen, it's right there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the position is set to 0, 0, 0 for my X, Y, and Z axis here in the inspector. All right, then I'm going to go to scale, and under the Y, I'm going to change that to a 2 to make it a little bit longer. And I'm going to change the color to a brown color. This is going to act as the base of my ground. Now that I've got that, I'm going to go back to the hierarchy again. I'm going to create another 2D sprite. It's a square. I'm going to set its position on the X to 0, and its position on the Y, I'm going to set that to 0.75. This time under scale, instead of being a 1 scale, I'm going to set it to a 0.5 scale. This is going to be the top of my ground, and I'm going to change it to a green color. Right, now I've got these 2 objects acting as my ground. I'm going to put them under a parent folder. To do that, I'm going to select both by holding Shift, right click, and then create an empty parent. Right, and this object I will call ground. Right, so now I've got a parent folder. I can click on this triangle here to hide them away or open it back up. What we need to do now is we need to add a collider. So I'm going to go back to my square one. I'm going to go over here under inspector to add component. I'm going to type in COL, and I'm going to add a box collider that is a 2D variant. All right, under Box D Collider 2D, I'm going to click this Use by Effector here. All right, and I'm going to scroll down to Add Component. And this time I want to add a Platform Effector 2D. So if you just type in PLA, it will come up the top. All right, what this does is it will allow any object to jump through the bottom of it. All right, and it will only act as a collider for anything that is coming from 180 degrees. Right, with that, our ground object is finished. So I'm going to shrink my ground object over here. All right, and now this is something I want to use a lot of. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to drag it into my prefabs folder. All right, you can see now that it's turned blue. All right, that means that this object is something that I can reuse multiple times, and if I want to make a change to it, I can just change this master one in the folder, and it will change all of them. Now that I've done that, I can see down here that we can't see that little green square. What that means is that they are both on the same layer. So which one is visible will depend on which one it feels like showing. So to fix that, I'm going to double click on this ground here underneath prefabs. I'm going to go to my square 1 here, and on the z-axis, I'm going to set that to -1. You can see there that that brings it to the front, so we can see it again. All right, so I'll click on this arrow here beside ground to get back out of it. All right, and there we have it. There's our ground. So it's really important when you're working with parent folders to remember that when you want to move it, right, to move it, we simply go to our move tool here, right, and you'll get these two arrows. When we're working with it, we want to make sure that when we move it, we don't accidentally move these two sprites. So I always like to keep it shrunk. Right, select the parent folder, and I'm just going to move this down here. Now, like I said, I want to use a lot of these. This is going to be my base ground. So to do that, I'm going to select the grounds, and I'm going to duplicate it. You do that by pressing Ctrl-D and having it selected, and then we can just slide it over a bit. All right, I'm going to select both of them, duplicate it again, all right, and keep doing that. And I'll do it a couple more times, and just duplicate them and move them around to make a bit of a map that we can interact with later on. Right, you can see now I have a lot of grounds in my hierarchy, and I want to clean that up to make it easier to work with. So I'm going to select the bottom one, I'm going to hold Shift and select the top one, right click, create an empty parent, I'm going to call this world, right, and then I can just shrink that so I can hide all of those away. That's it for this little video, ladies and gents. Catch you in the next one.